Inspiration, brave action, and heartwarming journeys. This is what the Louise H. Reed Show brings you. Now, here's your host, Louise H. Reed.
Hello, everybody, friends, regular listeners, and newcomers to the show today. I am your host, Louise H. Reed. I am here every Tuesday at this time, and I absolutely love this hour of my week. I am here exploring my own passions and exploring the journeys of amazing people who've truly embraced the notion of taking brave, bold action in pursuit of their best life, in pursuit of their dreams and goals. And so through the exploration of our guest's journey today, who is Hilary Drinkell, we'll hear how she came to make some of the choices in her life. My hope is that you'll hear a nugget or two today that will help to inspire and motivate you to take that brave, bold action in your own life. So before we hear from Hilary, let me tell you a little bit about this amazing woman. So Hilary is now the owner of her own business and an empowerment, well-being, and success coach. And she's been involved in education for several decades. While working in schools, she realized that helping children, their families, faculty, and staff find a healthy balance within their minds and bodies was key to every person's success in schools, business, and life. As the decades progressed, Hilary noticed more and more students and families, faculty, and administrators not being able to find a healthy life balance and often showing varying degrees of stress. Who can relate to that? I can see hands getting raised. As a holistic approach to health and well-being have always been a passion for Hilary, she decided to study various ancient techniques which would enable her to help others find and maintain a healthy balance within mind and body in order to empower each person towards success. With a master's degree in education, an undergrad in industrial psychology, and a whole host of wellness, yoga, meditation certifications, which we'll definitely be exploring in this hour today, she now offers support and has programs to enhance the well-being and success of children, families, faculty, and staff. At the end of the day, if you want less stress, more success, enhanced focus, clarity, and creativity, greater harmony in your personal, family, and work relationships, ultimately, do you want to ditch stress, overwhelm, and depletion? For vibrancy and long-term health and well-being, can I get a hell yes? And then Hilary's your woman, and you'll want to listen to the show. So welcome to the show, Hilary.
Thank you, Louise. It's fabulous being here.
I have been looking forward to this call with you for quite some time since we initially spoke and explored the opportunity of us having this coffee chat over radio. So I'm thrilled to finally be able to showcase you and all your awesomeness with the audience.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you.
So, as you know, and as my listeners know, I really, really am interested in exploring people's journeys. Mm-hmm. It's really easy to look at your list of accomplishments. So as I read your accomplishments, it's intimidating as a listener. I think, wow, this woman, she has just rocked it in life. Yeah. And so I think, while I believe that you have, and I know that you have, it's sort of peeling back some of those layers that I think serve to inspire others to take some different forks in the road when they intuitively feel like something has to change.
Mm-hmm. Yes,
and
absolutely.
When we hear how people do that, I think there's power in that. So where do we start, Hilary? Like, there is so much amazingness in what you do. Let's start with that sort of time in your life when you got to that crossroads. Tell us a little bit about that crossroads that you came to and how that all came to be and how you wrestled with that and what you did.
Sure. So I would say, Louise, there are two crossroads that I encountered in my life. And one was when I was 35, and suddenly I was slurring my speech. I was putting on loads of amount of weight. I couldn't move my joints properly. And I thought, oh my goodness, what is going on? Because along with, English degrees, we have double majors, right? So the industrial psych, along with that comes speech and drama as well, which is really a rather odd pairing. However, with my speech, I suddenly stepped up and went, what is going on? And my doctor ended up finding that I was hypothyroid. I just suddenly went hypothyroid. And so, there was the round of the doctors and everybody saying, this is what should happen, this is what should happen, this is what should happen. And I realized I needed to start being an advocate for myself, right? And, I'm close to 60. So this was a fair while ago. And so we didn't have the same amount of internet exposure and things like that in that day. However, I was very good at, I'd always been very interested in holistic health, as you pointed out. And so I started to ask questions. I started to ask questions of my doctors that they really weren't prepared to answer. They didn't have the knowledge to answer. So they're all right. I've always been very focused on health and well-being, my interpretation of it at the time. So what should I do? And so I started to look at diet, at whole foods as being something that I'd always been fairly conscious of it, but I really started to look at certain things. So that was the first shift in my journey, which at 35, you feel fairly, as a young person, you feel fairly invincible and that life is ahead of you, right? But this was a bit of a scare. What I didn't know was what caused this particular illness, right? What was the trigger? And often we don't know. Now looking back, several decades later, we're now discovering that it actually was stress.
Yeah.
It was stress. I'd moved countries. I had a young child. My husband was running a Japanese company in this country full time, and my dad ended up dying overseas. It was it was quite a challenging time, and all of this started to manifest. Mm-hmm. And so as a result, I started to really get into, okay, how does one look at your journey? And so I had this awareness, but did I do anything other than, focusing a little bit on diet? I never came across mindfulness or meditation or yoga. Now, I must say, I'd started to teach, because I was in the Montessori education system, I started to teach yoga to our students. And I wasn't a certified yoga instructor like I am now, but I was a former jazzercise instructor, and I did all those fun things.
Yeah, jazzercise. That's taking me right back.
That's fun, right? It's Throwback Thursday. But that all being said, we noticed that the faculty and I noticed an enormous difference in these students, and I thought, well, this is interesting. And we actually had some quantifiable information. And, as educators, we tend to look to the science. And so I started doing more research on that and started to find that there was a definite connection between the mind and the body while using yoga. Well, that stayed in my awareness for some time. We moved to Florida, and I ended up being, within a short period of time, a dean of students at a very large Montessori school, very well-known school. It went from toddlers through 18 years of age. It actually graduated students, which is not common for most Montessori schools.
Right.
And I ended up, having 13 faculty members. It was a very high stress job. Worked all hours of the day and night, always had to be on call, and was expected to hold standards at all different levels. Oh my goodness, what a stressful job.
And so was this before leading up to 35, or is this?
That was after.
Right,
yeah,
right.
That was just after. That started to come kind of the early 40s. And oh my gosh, all of a sudden, my medication wasn't working anymore.
Right.
And then I started to put some stuff together. Right. Then I realized, oh my gosh, this is stress. And I found the most wonderful internist, and a traditionally Western trained medical doctor. By then I hadn't found my Ayurvedic doctor, and that is what really turned this all around. But I started to do yoga. Oh, and wow, what a difference. All of a sudden, my mind and body didn't seem so anxious. I didn't seem to be responding to stress in the same way. And I thought, wow, this is definitely coming back to what I'd learned before. Now I'm actually practicing it. And then I was given the opportunity to become a consultant, and I did a tremendous amount of travel. And when I went to these different schools, In Montessori, the way that we consult is the way we coach, Louise.
Okay.
We don't go in and, often consultants will go in and say, this is what you have to do, implement it, right? That's not Montessori. So I don't go from that perspective. I go from a coaching perspective.
Right.
Here are the options, what would work best for you, so on and so forth. And the biggest issue happening in all of the schools were faculty were burnt out, the heads of schools were burnt out, the entire admin team were burnt out, and students were showing more and more displays of anxiety, overwhelm, stress, not wanting to do lessons, even in a Montessori classroom, which is generally, fairly relaxed and way more fun than just sit in your desk and listen, right?
Yeah.
And I thought
interestingly, you were feeling those things too. While you were noticing and observing those in those groups, you were also experiencing that.
Yes.
Fascinating. Okay, so what did you do with that?
Well, everybody said, write a book. I was like, just add another layer to my story. Go for it, another layer.
Like you're not overwhelmed enough.
And then I was offered a head of school position at one of the jobs where I consulted a lot. And I thought, I want to help this school. So I will say this to all of your listeners out there. All of us who want to help, all of us who give so much of ourselves, often don't realize the underlying stress that it's putting on our body system. And we notice maybe we start getting tired. We notice a few aches and pains in our body, or oh my gosh, this is right? As causing most of the major diseases today. Not just anxiety, depression, all of this. It's actually related now medically in science to cancer, heart disease, hypertension, all of these awful scenarios.
It's devastating, really, isn't it? It's the impact that can have. And the good news through all of this is that we actually have the ability to do something about this.
And if we do short things for quality things, quality modalities or techniques for short snippets of time, Louise, not overwhelm yourself by going, oh my gosh, I've got to go out and do an hour yoga class. That's fabulous, but you can do other things along with that or instead until you can get to that space where you can add in longer things.
Right.
That's where it makes a difference.
So recognizing that we have some listeners who will hear that and think, this sounds like me.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
What is and recognizing that the idea of doing that full yoga class might be overwhelming.
Yes, absolutely.
You could tell us what you did, what your first steps were, to give an example as to how they may be able to start looking at their own life and maybe integrating something or two. So continue us on your journey.
So the first thing is what I did when I got to the school was then my thyroid went out again and the medication wasn't working again. And I became really quite ill. All kinds of, thyroid has all kinds of ramifications, particularly as you get older. It goes to pre-diabetes, it goes to high cholesterol levels, it goes to osteoporosis. These are all the side effects of thyroid disease that I didn't know about when I was 35.
Right.
However, that all being said, to bring the mind-body back into balance, to at least reduce the inflammation of stress in the body, I started to look at the training. And of course, I was taking training at the time in yoga, meditation, Ayurveda. I started to look at all of this and go, I'm an educator. Mm-hmm. I teach educators, right? I'm a teacher trainer. I know how to put this together for students and adult and young students. Why am I not able to do this for myself as well as for others? And what I started to do was distill down all of this magnificent wisdom. And I brought it down to 5 minutes, 3 times a day. And I started doing stacking, what I call stacking the techniques, Louise, so that I got maximum benefit from the techniques. And I then ended up counseling the parents in the school, counseling the students. We brought the program into the school, which is where my wellbeing curriculum started, and I started doing that in the school and then developed it further. So how can people, the first thing that people can do, Louise, it's free, it's easy, and we all know how to do it. That's the trick, is breathing. And for some of your listeners, this may be, we know this, right? The difficulty is we might know how to do conscious breathing. We don't always do it.
So can you lead us through
Sure.
one right now? Okay, so I'm one of your people.
Yep.
I have no idea what you're talking about. I'm thinking,
right.
I breathe all the time.
Yes.
So coach me through how I would coach me.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Louise, when you breathe, that's part of a system in your body which is called the autonomic nervous system. That's a system that automatically allows you to breathe. Why? Because we don't need to be thinking of breathing when we're sleeping or when we're eating or when we're working, right? So just like the heart beats and digestion occurs, those are all things that are on automatic in the body. However, with our breath, we can actually bring awareness to the breath. So that's the first thing I want you to do is actually think, you take your awareness, your attention, and put it on how you are breathing right now, right? And I want you to notice, are you breathing all the way down to your belly?
No.
Okay, so this is where I want us going, okay? Oftentimes we breathe all the way up in the chest, and this is called shallow breathing. This actually stresses the body even more, unbeknownst to us. If you think about it, when you get a fright, you can feel your heart beat faster and your breath starts to rapidly, increase, right? And the only way that happens is by breathing in the center of the chest here, up near the shoulders. And that is conducive to getting you to move away from a dangerous situation, possibly. However, oftentimes, because of the stress we're under, just daily lives today, right? And that's another whole side of the story. But the first thing to do is stay away from judgment, from yourself and from others. That will calm your life down immediately. And then go to your breath. And if we breathe in through our nose and out through our nose, this helps some of the cranial nerves, particularly something called the vagus nerve. And that immediately calms the body and the mind down. You have no control with your thoughts over that. You immediately create that, which immediately will help your thoughts. So it's the chicken and the egg story, right? So,
I'm loving this, Hillary, because I have to say, firstly, I know about the breath stuff and the impact that has. And yet, as you were talking to me, I was doing it. I was doing what you said because I was breathing in my chest, like I know is not the best way to do. So I was breathing through my belly. And immediately, again, even though I know this to be powerful, it sometimes is even valuable having someone else reminding you that. And perhaps that's the value of, well, I think truly that's the value of a coach.
Yes, absolutely.
Going to classes gives you that, it guides you through that process that, yes, we know, but we don't always do.
Louise, you and I both have coaches.
Yes.
I have to be reminded myself. I go back for training with Dr. Chopra, right? I go back to training with the Ayurvedic center where I was. So Chopra, I'm trained in their yoga and meditation techniques as a teacher. And then the Ayurveda, I'm trained as a clinical practitioner. And I have to keep going back. Every year, I do something with them, right? Because I'm human. And guess what? We all are. And life can easily get in the way. And once these become habits, you see, that's the difference, where a coach helps you develop these habits, right? When I get up in the morning, for 45 minutes, and I'm not suggesting anybody else, because that sends panic through people. I don't suggest anybody else tries this to start off with, right? As a meditation and a yoga and an Ayurvedic practitioner, I've chosen that path, and that's what I do. I wouldn't be very good if I didn't practice these techniques. I wouldn't be good for my clients, right? It's why I do my practice. And in late afternoon, I also, but small snippets. I even say to my clients, do it for 30 seconds.
Right.
And, here's the other thing, Louise. We are all living under levels of stress because of the way society works today. And again, there's that no judgment, right? But say, for example, you've got a tough phone call that you have to make, or you are going to a meeting with your child's teacher and you've been called in and you know that you're not usually just called in, right? Or, you suddenly kind of have some conflict in the family.
Right.
Before having any conversation, do some deep belly breathing. And importantly, that's just breathe in through your nose, breathe out through your nose, all the way right at the bottom. So expand the belly outwards as you breathe in.
Because that's flattens. Like babies breathe.
Yes, exactly. Watch the babies breathe, right? And take a cue from them. And then the only other thing I'm going to suggest is to try and breathe out slightly longer than you breathe in. So when we breathe the same time, or more quickly in and less out, we activate the body. It actually builds the body, it energizes the body. But if you're in a state of anxiousness or stress, that we don't want to heighten that, right?
We wouldn't create calm.
Yes. And while you're doing that, just think to yourself, I am in my calm, happy place.
I'm in my calm, happy place.
I'm in my calm, happy place. You just think that as you're breathing in and out. And do that 20 seconds before you get on the phone call, several seconds before you have a conversation with the family member, as you're walking to wherever it is that you're meeting the teacher, and get your children to do it too.
I love that. And I love that. I know there are no simple life hacks to creating the life that we want, but I love how you still gave little, you call them stacking techniques. And I really, really liked that, because we're all on a journey, and it all starts with a single step. That's, we know that quote. And so while that's not going to completely change your life, it's the start of change, and you have to start somewhere. So I love that you shared that. So take us back to your story a little bit. So you're at this point now where you're head of school, you're noticing all of these things in all of the individuals that you're involved with at all levels, from student to parents, faculty, and yourself. You start to integrate some of these wellness practices and yoga, meditation, etc., in the schools. What's happening in your life, and when do you make a career shift? Because I know there's a big shift that happened there. So tell us a little bit about that and why you made that shift.
So I had a contract with the school, and after my graduation as a meditation teacher and my first week training as a yoga teacher, we take a year online and do all kinds of things, but then we go on site, and it's fairly intense. I came back and I said to a fellow administrator, how would it look if I asked the Board of Trustees if I could get out of my contract a year early? And one, it would be very helpful to the school, because all schools, financially are always, particularly a 501c3, a nonprofit, they're all looking at a fine line. But also I think you are more than capable. Instead of me training you for a year, you are beyond capable of doing this, without me. I can do some behind the scenes stuff if needed, but whatever. No. And I came back and the second time, and I said to them, guys, in my gut kept saying to me, you need to move for your health, for your well-being, and for the health and well-being of the school. Interestingly enough, it came to me from both sides that both myself and the organization would benefit, right? And they were gracious and said, yes, this is the way to go. And the interesting thing is, and Louise, you were talking about manifesting earlier before we jumped on, right?
Yes.
I had a situation in my family where my mum was selling something, and we all got given a gift. And do you know that gift came on the day that I signed my release of contract?
Wow. That's incredible.
There's no such thing as coincidence, right? It was definitely, the universe giving me something that would allow me to go on this journey. And so I spent the last several years, finalizing the journey, because I went on and took more study and building up this business, because I've got two sides to the business. I help people, when they're stressed out, and I empower them, right? I'm really a stress reduction coach, but as a result of stress reduction comes empowerment. And the way I do it is through well-being techniques. Right. And there's nothing worse than hearing, oh, I'm a stress reduction coach. Do you want to reduce your stress? So I'd rather people understood that empowerment really is where they're going to align. And so I went on this journey, and you and I, had a fellow coach together and to help with part of that journey. And I just did a week of silence 8 weeks ago.
Wow.
With Deepak and his crew, and did a lot of training and listened to him for 2 hours every night. Wow. We weren't allowed to speak, so we wrote down our questions. And he was so funny. He'd say, well, you can't answer back, but here I'm going to.
I love that.
Yeah, it was
I love
fabulous.
that. I've got so many questions. I've got so much I want to explore here, and I want to hear a little bit more about, I want to hear a lot more about that week of silence. But before we go there, how were you nervous, scared, or something when you actually made that decision to listen to your intuition, to make that leap of leaving the school? Was there fear?
Petrified.
Petrified.
Absolutely petrified. I mean, it was a leap into the abyss.
Yes.
Right?
It is. I think it's so important to share that, because now when we look at you, it's all worked out. But anyone who has taken bold action in pursuit of what they know they want their life to be,
it's scary.
At some point they have to take that leap, and it does involve some faith into whether it's the universe, God, or whatever your higher belief is.
Yes,
it takes a belief in something bigger than yourself.
You know, it's interesting, Louise. I grew up in a faith-based tradition. I actually took 4 years of education for ministry. I did a layperson's course, right?
Oh, you did?
Yeah. So, you know, my journey has always been one of seeking and trying to understand, and, you know, the question, who am I? You know, what is my purpose? You know, how can I serve? All those questions are very important. And I've asked those questions probably from being very young. And, you know, the journey goes like this, right?
It does.
Sometimes it goes like this and then it comes back up, right?
Absolutely.
And that's life. That's life. But how to navigate life, we have the tools. Our body is beyond intelligent. Our mind actually is what creates the blocks, right? We all know about mindset. We all know about negative beliefs. We all know about conditioned responses. So how do you get rid of those? Well, you don't 100%. You're a work in progress. No one ever has arrived.
Yeah.
I have yet to meet anybody in this world who says, I'm there. You know, maybe some of our world, you know, gurus like Jesus, you know, Muhammad, the Buddha, those types of people, maybe we could say they were much more enlightened beings than the average person. And we probably have those around us today. I think we might be too busy to always recognize them.
Yes.
And that's another way, you know, that the other part to that breathing is the stillness that it brings to the cells in the body. And remember, we are vibrational cells, whether we like it or not. And it's really hard to wrap your head around that one. But, you know, we are vibrational energy, and everything is. And we know that from a scientific perspective, what can be tested. They also can test interestingly enough, our subtle energy, the energy that isn't solid. They can see that, and that all affects what we do. But if you don't bring your mind, body into harmony with basic well-being techniques, one of which is breathing, you know, and I would say yoga is another one, also tweaks in lifestyle, minor. And people, again, that's another panic-inducing thought.
It's true. And so what would be an example of one of those minor tweaks?
When you wake up in the morning, do not touch an electronic gadget, please. Sit for a minute and think some positive thoughts. Breathe the breathing that we just talked about. And just a minute. And then you will find, and this is crazy, Louise, and no one can explain it, the more that you do this, the more time and space you have in your day. Don't ask me why. Don't ask me how. But as that, you know, running around with like a chicken with my head cut off, head of school, who was studying at the same time some major, you know, these aren't easy studies to do. These were kind of as tough as my master's degree, really, to be honest, and demanded as much emotionally, you know, mentally. I found more time. And my faculty said the same thing. Do you know, I would say at lunchtime, and I barely ever had lunch. I mean, my business manager would come to me and say, I am now telling everybody they may not come near you for the next 10 minutes. It's 2 p.m. and you have not eaten yet, right? She was amazing. She was lovely. And I would put out then, I thought, okay, you've got to switch this up, Hillary. And I'd put out to the faculty, anybody want to come? If you are on your lunch break, I'll take my lunch break at staggered times so I can get as many of you as possible, because they were, you know, when you work with children, you don't have the same flexibility as you do as an administrator, for example, right? And I would say we can sit in my office for 5 or 10 minutes and we can do some breathing, we can do some affirmations, we can do I did a lot of mindfulness with them. Or we can go for a 10-minute walk around the neighborhood. We had a beautiful neighborhood where the school was, and just enjoy nature and just talk about whatever is helpful to you today. I used to start faculty meetings with a visualization. I'd ask them to lead it. So we ran the gamut of, all the different religions were represented, but it was, faith-free in the sense of everybody had their faith, but we used this as a common meeting ground. And people would start the meeting, and guess what? Everybody said we are more productive in the meeting.
Absolutely. So I think it's beautiful. I'm not sure if I mentioned this to you previously in any of our conversations, that when I finished university, I went to college, and in 1997, I graduated with wellness and lifestyle management diploma.
Oh my!
Yeah,
I didn't know that.
And so I at the time, I think I was 21 or 22, and I thought that this was like the best thing since sliced bread. But I then also realized that when I said the word wellness, I whispered it because it was like people thought it was voodoo.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so a moment ago, you were mentioning, we all know about mindset. We all know about, the importance of well-being and that kind of thing. I'm not sure
that everybody understands.
I'm not sure that everyone does. So it's a world that I have lived in and I have embraced and I appreciate and respect and look to bring to all elements of my life. But it does concern me that it's still, while I don't have to whisper the word wellness anymore, and there is a bit more appreciation for the benefits of things outside of the medical model and the medical paradigm, it's still very much an accessory to the medical model, I think, in terms of a mindset. What do you think it's going to be?
What I do, Louise, for me personally, I read, obviously, like you, the scientific evidence that this actually changes the body or the mind, right? However, in all of with my school program in particular, because schools go, woof, right? However, they are struggling more with overwhelm and burnout than they have ever done before. So I look to them and I say, here is the science. Here is the latest evidence. And Dr. Chopra is an endocrinologist of the brain. He is a medical Western.
And we seem...
Sorry? Whoops. Are you there, Louise? Looks like, Louise, you've frozen. I hope I'm not frozen.
We're going to go to break. Louise, are you there? I think she froze.
She looks like she's frozen to me, Cameron. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you fine. Louise, you need to jump off and then come back on. Okay,
there she is.
Are you there?
There she is.
Hello. So Hillary, the last I heard,
no, we're on a break. We're on a break.
Okay.
Because you froze.
Okay.
Oh, see, look at that. It's all your fault that we weren't streaming.
It's my fault.
Yeah, because now we're streaming. As soon as you went off and went back on, we're streaming.
Look at that. We're streaming. So we're live on Facebook?
Well, I don't know.
Oh.
Still preparing.
We'll find out.
It was the universe saying that we weren't supposed to be talking about the science.
There you go. All right, stand by. Here we go.
And here we are. Thank you for staying with us. And for those of you just joining us, as a reminder, I'm here with Hillary Drinkell, who is an empowerment, well-being, and success coach, and all-around amazing, wonderful human being. We were just exploring a little bit about the science behind the practices that Hillary knows to work. So Hillary, you want to just continue on that realm for us?
Absolutely. So within schools, I bring in what research has been done on yoga and stress reduction. And I always look at stress reduction being empowering for the body and leading to your success, right? Because if we're in constant stress, you can't have success. It's not possible. Well, you can, but there's always going to be something that's out of balance. And ultimately, stress, we know medically, results in in not pleasant experiences. And it all depends on what your history is with your background, Louise, and those types of things. So we look at that yoga as a stress reduction and empowerment, because it works with the mind-body or the body-mind. We look at mindfulness or meditation, and they are two different things. I suggest, I'm a meditation instructor, but I'm also very well versed in mindfulness. I suggest often people start in mindfulness and go to meditation. Mindfulness is a little easier in some of the techniques than the meditation for if you're a newbie. And again, the science is proving across the board. In fact, I think one of my researchers that I found, it said from kindergartners to die-hard criminals, murderers, and medical, the students who are becoming medical doctors across the board, it works to reduce stress, develop clarity and focus and creativity. And of course, all of that leads to and he said, what did to us? And the reason is we don't recognize it. We don't know that we're under certain levels of stress. And I will give you an example. I moved recently, not a doctor, and I had with my former medical doctor, she said to me, Hillary, there's a lot of stresses happening right now in your life. And I said, really? I don't feel stressed. She said, just so you know, your mind-body probably does. However, I do work on all of these techniques, right? But my thyroid was being a little, and that's affecting my body. So I have this in me until something pops up, right? So I say to people, is it worth ignoring? Is it worth not on my phone for a minute? Or I would even look at my phone until after I've had a shower, and I will breathe and I will ground. And we haven't spoken about grounding, Louise, but that's another one that's simple and easy that your listeners may be interested in doing. Very simple.
So tell me a little bit about what that means.
So that means basically the energy that we have, connecting it to Mother Earth, because Mother Earth is solid, stable, it's kind of just hanging on as best as it can, right? But if we think about standing with our feet on the floor, wherever you are, you don't have to go outside. I mean, outside changes the energetic field for you, but that's not needed. So you could get up, as you get up out of bed, just stand there, do some breathing.
So can I pause for a minute here?
Yes.
Can you speak to our listeners right now?
Mm-hmm.
Like they're actually, so listeners, I want you, all of you, unless you're in your car.
Yes.
I'd like you to actually stand up
and
have Hillary lead you through what this actually can look like and feel like. Do you mind doing that with us, Hillary?
Of course not. Absolutely.
Okay, I'm going to do it right. I'm going to do it right now. Okay.
Okay. You do it too. Take your shoes off if you can.
Yeah. I've actually got my comfy slippers on. So my comfy slippers are off. Okay. I'm going to stand up.
Okay. So Louise, I want you to stand with your feet facing forward and your feet hip distance apart. Now, hip distance is if we have two fists. So remember, most of us think our hips are wider than what they really are. And think about as if you're a tree, and think as if you've got roots coming out of your feet, and connect to the earth. And then I want you, if you're comfortable, and this is, some people, because of their experiences in life, particularly those with PTSD, don't find it comfortable to close their eyes. But so if you can't close your eyes, just gaze straight ahead. If you can, close your eyes. And then, this is mountain pose. And put your hands by your sides, just gently by your sides. Make sure your shoulders are stacked over your hips, and your hips are stacked over your ankles. And your knees are just a slight bend so that you're not rigid, right? And then breathe in through your nose. Think, I am calm, I am happy. And breathe out through your nose, I am calm, I am happy. And you can do that for as many times as you want. You think of your feet connecting to the earth. You are safe, You hear, gravity has you, earth has you, and you are calm and you are happy. And you may not be able to think that you're happy at this point in time. So you could think, I am working on being calm and happy. That's okay too.
Wow. I feel a bit dizzy.
You were breathing in. So here's what happens. If you are not used to taking in large quantities of oxygen and oxygenating your body, you will, because the oxygen is flowing to the brain, right? It's going to make you a little lightheaded. So reduce the length of the breath in and the breath out if you start to feel dizzy, right?
You felt fantastic.
It should center you. It should kind of just center you, right? Bring a certain peace. Now imagine if we start the day with a calm focus, with a peaceful focus, no matter what we know is coming up, we're going to respond in a different way, Louise. It's just the way we are. We will respond in a different way. And there's times in life where a response that comes from stress and anxiety and overwhelm is not the best response.
Absolutely, unless we're being chased by that tiger.
Yeah.
Saber-toothed tiger in the past, right? And our brain, that fight or flight response served us well in the past. And on occasion, if a car is coming towards us and we didn't look properly, serves us well.
Yes.
But apart from that, responding from a place of overwhelm and stress usually doesn't serve us, does it?
No, and from a cellular level,
right.
we are not served. So you get your cells in a space of harmony. And guess what happens? The body-mind is connected. They, again, know that now in science. They didn't know this 10, 15 years ago. They now know because of this vagus nerve. So they know this. So when we connect that way, the mind can respond. Imagine that you're a leader of your company and you have to make quite a tough decision. Wouldn't you like to make that from a creative perspective, from a calm perspective, rather than a panicked, stressed, overwhelmed perspective? We know that you will not make the same quality decision as watching. And so we know this. We know when we respond to our children. We know when we, it's all of these things. We know what that level of success is. So the question is, do you respect yourself or do you love yourself enough to give yourself, I say 5 minutes 3 times a day, but I even say to my clients when I coach them, don't give me 5 minutes 3 times a day. Don't give yourself 5 minutes 3 times a day. Start off with 3 times a day and give me 30 seconds to a minute. And we can do that. Louise, think about this. You can breathe as you're going up in the elevator to work. You can breathe. No one's going to know. You can, right? Yeah.
And so this is an example of also being mindful, isn't it?
Yes. Absolutely.
And so it brings you to the present moment. I remember when my kids were little, they're still little by some people's standards, but when they were, 2 years old and we would go for I actually called, when I went for a walk with them, I wouldn't call them a walk. I'd say we're going on an adventure.
Oh, lovely. And
it was just through our neighborhood.
Yeah.
But the things they would see, children, they see a worm and they're like, oh, a worm. Yes. And they crouch and they ask questions and they explore.
Yes.
And that was beautiful. I really reflect on those moments and those times in my life is really very enriching. To see life and the world again through a child's eye was quite a shift for me, as it is probably for most other people as well.
Yes.
And I'm very thankful that I have been able to, as a result of that, I've held on to those moments. I leave my house every day, and when I look to the left, and I can see it right now from where I'm sitting in my office, there is this large span of this large area that's protected woods. So I live in, so the city that I live in, it's protected grounds. And when then I look to the right, I'm at the top of a hill, and I look to the right and I can see over in the province, because I'm in Canada, the province next to us, I see they're not mountains, so they don't compare to where you are in Denver, but there are some hills. They're called the hills. And I breathe that in. Every moment I step outside, I look to my left and take a breath, and I look to my right.
Two very
really
grounding nature things, trees
Yes.
and mountains. And
Yes. Wow.
yes, and if you are feeling unstable at all, go sit under a tree, go stand next to a tree, go look at a mountain. And that, if you can't do, then do standing mountain pose, which is what we've just done, right? Or do it in that situation, because it will bring even more focused, centered calm to the body. It's really remarkable what it does.
So I would like at this time to challenge all of my listeners to take that 30 seconds 3 times a day.
Yeah.
Choose you for 30 seconds 3 times a day, because you are worth it.
Mm-hmm.
You are worth it.
And we need everybody's gifts in the world, Louise. We all know we are unique, and we all have a special talent that is needed to help with what's going on in creation, right? So if we're not in a place where we can bring our gifts, we don't feel the same joy. So that's, and doesn't everyone want to be joyful? We're not all going to be joyful at all times, but we would love to have that underlying groundwork of joy. I'm finding the joy in my day, right?
Yes. Yes. Because there are terrible things that occur in our life.
Yes.
We don't need to look far beyond our own lives or the lives of others. And we are very fortunate to live in the countries we live in, and even in our own countries, which are very wealthy and well-to-do for the most part. There still are tragedies happening all around us.
All around us, absolutely.
And so I love what you said about finding joy in every day. There will be days that are joyful.
Yes.
And there will be days that there will be harder moments to find those moments of joy.
And Louise, may I just mention, it just occurred to me, we're coming to holiday season.
Yes.
Right? For the most part, for most people. And the expectation is that you find the happiness and the joy in the holiday season. And it sometimes can be the most difficult time for some people, for various reasons. But if we could take those 30 seconds 3 times a day, just for you, if you start now, some of the stresses of the holiday season, whatever they might be for you, you will be able to respond to in a slightly different way. The more that you increase those 30 seconds to a few minutes a day, the more you'll find that. But every time we do that, we go back to our true source or essence, that is pure, right? And that is completely just amazing. And we bring that in. It's like always finding a little bit more of the pure within us bubbling up. And that's all it takes.
Oh, it's wonderful. I feel different, to be honest, already, even having just a couple of times gone through a couple of those exercises that you so kindly walked us through, and I put you on the spot. So thank you for playing along.
No, not at all. I love doing it. I love it.
You also have such a calming voice. I feel like I could go into I definitely could go into a meditative state, which I struggle with, to be honest, because I am, like many people, I am busy in my mind and in my body. I feel very busy, which reminds me that I need to do these things even more. That for me is the fact that I can recognize that, and I know that to be true. That's the sign, folks. I know our bodies give us signs all the time that we should consider quieting or taking those moments. And I think that we actually teach that out of our children.
Unfortunately, we do, Louise, which is why I'm trying to encourage heads of schools. I've had several heads of schools purchase my curriculum, which they have for life. But, that's amazing what I'm seeing. I mean, the faculty say to me, it's amazing. They just calm down. We can't believe it. And I'm like, well, I'm glad you're seeing it.
And what I find so fun about this is that everyone can benefit from it.
Yes.
Children, parents, every single person can benefit from this. Therefore, families benefit and can thrive, communities, schools, organizations. So if there is a faculty member listening right now thinking, well, how do I get my hands on this? How would they best reach you, Hilary?
Probably the best way, because usually there's a webinar and they come to me through a webinar, but the best way is to go to my website, because there is a contact me page and they can get hold of me that way. So may I say the website name? Does that work?
Please, yes, please do.
It's just www.hillarydrinkell.com, and go to the contact me page and you'll be able to contact me directly.
Also, if you would like to send me the link to your webinar, I would be happy to put that in the show notes.
Okay.
So those listening who need to get in touch with Hilary, whether you're a parent, whether you're a faculty member, community member, and you think there's something here that I need to explore more, please go to Hilary's website. Please feel free to go to my website, louisehreed.com, and get the link to Hilary, both Hilary's website as well as the webinar, which I will put in the show notes. And at this time, Hilary, I would love to chat longer. We've taken up the hour, and so I absolutely have to say from the bottom of my heart and my soul, thank you so much for so generously spending your heart and your time with me today.
You're welcome, and thank you for the invitation, Louise. It's been fabulous. Thank you.
Absolutely. It truly was my pleasure. And at this time, also thank you to all of you, my loyal listeners. And thanks, as always, a big shout out to my amazing producer, Cameron Steele at Contact Talk Radio Network. And I would like to remind all of you, as I do every week, be brave, be bold, be happy. And until next week, Tuesday at this time, I'm Louise H. Reed, wishing you all a wonderful, amazing day. Goodbye, friends.